Well, one thing that isn't stopping right now is the sense of emergency that Trump has sought to cultivate in the US. I mean, we saw it under Biden as well, the post January 6th hysteria. But with Trump, it relates directly to Iran. Iranian sleeper cells. And, actually, just days before this war began, I went to Trump's military parade, which was supposed to be the Army's 250th birthday in Washington. And I felt that there was a feeling that was deliberately generated there that the United States was under attack. And so if you were standing there on the National Mall or near the Capitol, you would see, or actually just, yeah, anywhere in that area, you would see bombing runs of World War II era bombers, Vietnam era choppers, and modern choppers going overhead constantly with tanks in the street. It was meant to instill a sense that, the US was already at war somewhere, somehow with this vast military. And now there's a sense of emergency being pipelined into the bloodstream of Trump's base and parts of the American public, not only through Fox News, but through mainstream media about Iranian sleeper cells. And it really feels like we're building up to something. It could just go away, but it reminds me and reminds everyone who lived through the post 9/11 era of 2002 all over again. This is 3 hours after the U.S. attacked Iran.
There's been so much reporting around the threat in the United States over the past few years, the risk to officials involved with actions against Iran, the risk of sleeper cells here in the United States. When we talk about retaliation, should we be thinking about the homeland?
Margaret, I am deeply concerned about the potential for retaliatory attacks here in the homeland by Iran. Iran's nuclear program has certainly...
This is Sam Vinograd, who was like a Biden official, a Biden hack in DHS or something.
Taken a hit. We will await the battleground assessment to understand how deep that hit was. But we do know that Iran is likely going to rely on its asymmetric advantage in this conflict with the United States and Israel, which is its proxies all around the world. Iran has for decades had both intent and the ability to direct and inspire individuals to attack American, Israeli, and Jewish interests and assets all around the world. During my
why hasn't that happened then in the U.S.?
Time at Homeland Security, we tracked myriad Iranian threats here in the homeland, as you mentioned, against former government officials involved in the strike against Qasem Soleimani, against dissidents, against journalists, against the Saudi ambassador during the Obama administration, and against everyday Americans. So right now, while Iran has certainly taken a hit to its nuclear program and military installations, it is likely that they will rely on their asymmetric advantage in this context, which is their proxies, to try to send a signal to the United States and to the rest of the world that they just aren't going to take this hit without any kind of response. Now, how significant their reprisals will be is something the intelligence and law enforcement communities are likely looking into, but I am concerned about the threat here.
But she just said it was likely that Iran would use its asymmetric advantage to wage terror attacks inside the U.S. And then in the next breath, she said that she doesn't actually know what's going to happen and can't point to any instance of that taking place. This is the same. I don't know if you remember her, but she tweeted that everyone should beware of Russia and its assets in Venezuela at the same time that we happen to be down there reporting on the U.S.-backed coup of Juan Guaido. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then you wrote to her and said, who are you referring to exactly? And she refused to name anybody.
Sure. Yeah. The only sleeper cells I'm worried about are the people pretending to be journalists and just doing Israel's bidding. And the same thing with the politicians, like the people we saw there, Trump and J.D. Vance, pretending to be against endless war while waging it. Those are the real sleeper cells we have to be worried about. Here's one more. This is from CNN. This one is just, well, it speaks for itself.
Has already begun retaliation against the United States with a strike against an airbase in Qatar, but there are also fears of potential retaliation on U.S. soil. So what would that look like? According to U.S. intelligence officials, the most likely scenario would be that of the lone wolf, an individual actor acting alone, inspired by online propaganda from the regime. But we have also heard from former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who gave another scenario, and that is that of the sleeper cell, operatives hidden on U.S. soil waiting to strike. Pompeo may have a very good idea of what he's talking about. The former Secretary of State has been the subject of an Iranian plot to have him killed because when he was secretary, he was part of the decision-making team in the Trump administration that organized the assassination of Iranian general.
It's just taking as fact that Mike Pompeo, because Mike Pompeo says it, that he was targeted by an Iranian assassination plot. Like, so Mike Pompeo saying it makes it true according to CNN, just as like Israel saying that there were dozens of beheaded babies on October 7th, according to CNN, made that true. It's the exact same kind of stenography.
General Qasem Soleimani. Hitmen were allegedly hired to stalk Pompeo and other U.S. officials, including President Trump, to see if they could be assassinated as retribution. But in terms of sleeper cells, we also have background here in New York City, where the FBI and the New York City Police Department, within the Joint Terrorism Task Force, engaged in a series of cases and prosecutions involving alleged Iranian plots to kidnap dissidents, commit hits or murders in the streets, to study targets of tourist locations.
And those cases, right, were just based on FBI informants engaged in fake plots, if I remember correctly. You know, like that lady, like with the flower in her hair, the Iranian self-styled dissident.
Oh yeah,
right?
Masih Alinejad.
Yeah. That's one of the cases he's referring to, and that was basically just like that was the one where Iranian agents were accused of trying to kidnap her and then put her on a boat to Venezuela.
Yeah, the Venezuela was going to take her on a fast boat all the way to there, and then they'd ship her back to Iran. It sounded very plausible. And by the way, who is that guy who kind of looks like Glenn Beck? That is John Miller, who is posing as a CNN correspondent. I mean, that's his job, but he's the former spokesman, communications director for the NYPD. So he's basically just a cop playing journalist. And before that, he was a journalist who was probably a cop or a spook, whose main claim to fame was he got an interview with Osama bin Laden, who he had somehow disappeared and wound up getting shot while just sitting in his home in the suburb of Abbottabad. I mean, it's pretty clear that he's just a propagandist, and that they want to hype up Iranian sleeper cells to justify their budget increase at the NYPD. And the NYPD, I mean, we had a Democratic official pumping out this propaganda, Sam Vinograd at CBS. She's now a CBS correspondent or expert, but she's a former national security official. John Miller, former cop, he's the CNN correspondent or CNN expert. And then you have the NYPD itself and the mayor of New York, who comes out of the NYPD. He basically just is the NYPD, Eric Adams. They're pushing this as well.
You're always concerned about sleeper cells. We're going to ensure that we focus on sleeper cells.
Mayor Adams taking seriously warnings from Washington that Iran.
I love this sign behind him, though. Watch.
Mayor Adams.
Right to the left. Rat sightings have declined for 6 straight months. I see a rat right in front of me.
Adams taking seriously warnings from Washington that Iran could activate sleeper cells here to seek retribution for the bombings. Rebecca Weiner, NYPD Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, tells CBS News New York her agency has been on alert for days.
We are doubling down on our efforts. We are doubling down on reaching out to partners internationally, federally, doubling down on all of the monitoring that we are doing.
This as the bombing became topic A on the campaign trail for those seeking to win the Democratic mayoral primary. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo also warning that something could happen here.
As a New Yorker, my natural instinct, former governor, former HUD secretary, New York should get ready for possible reprisal by Iran.
Oh, that's your natural. Of course, it's your natural instinct. But there's a significant figure who appears there. That's Rebecca Weiner. She's not very well known nationally, but she directs a lot of this counterterror propaganda inside New York. And she also is an arch Zionist who helped lead the crackdown at Columbia University of the encampment there. As besides being deputy commissioner for intelligence and counterterrorism, she was a Columbia SIPA trustee, I think. No, professor at Columbia SIPA. Here she is. Congratulations to SIPA adjunct professor Rebecca Weiner, who was recently appointed as deputy commissioner. So,
and SIPA, by the way, at Columbia, as we've talked about before, is overseen by a former Israeli intelligence officer.
Yes.
That's the leader of SIPA at Columbia University.
And has as a trustee and professor Hillary Clinton. And you could safely assume that these figures were involved in one way or another in handing over the name of Mahmoud Khalil and information about him to the Trump administration, who was a student at Columbia SIPA, who helped lead the encampment as sort of a negotiator with the administration. So the Iranian sleeper cells play so many roles. It's going to increase the budget of the NYPD, make sure that counterterror frauds like Rebecca Weiner can have jobs. John Miller, former NYPD comms director, is using CNN to promote it. But it's also setting the stage for either a false flag and or these kind of FBI manufactured terror plots. I think there's a very high chance, like 90%, that the FBI is going to start manufacturing some plot with some mentally disturbed Shia male. They're trying to do that right now as we speak to legitimize the phony threat of Iranian sleeper cells. And in fact, they already were working on this last year. They manufactured a plot. This is getting hardly any media attention, but they manufactured a plot with someone who wasn't Iranian or Shia and tried to link it to Palestinian resistance. His name is Mohammed Shahzeb Khan, who they say attempted to enter the United States to carry out a mass shooting at a Jewish center in the U.S. The defendant is alleged to have planned a terrorist attack in New York around October 7th with the stated goal of slaughtering as many Jewish people as possible in the name of ISIS. This was a Biden administration thing. And that he was going to do it 1 year after Hamas's horrific attack on Israel. And, let's say that took place. In addition to being absolutely horrible, it would be used directly to implicate the Palestine Solidarity Movement and advance the agenda, which is being accelerated and put on steroids by Trump, of labeling Palestine Solidarity groups as terrorist organizations. And, this is an FBI press release. Undercover. I just, word search undercover. Khan distributed ISIS propaganda videos and literature. Subsequently, he began communicating with two undercover law enforcement officers, and he started the distribution of these videos on an encrypted messaging application. Who was he messaging with? He was messaging with undercover officers. The FBI maintains 15,000 undercover officers. Look at Rebecca Weiner's Twitter account, and she's claiming credit for this bust, which took place in Canada. It was undercover officers from the FBI or NYPD who initiated contact with him, who manufactured this plot and then lured him to the US border to be arrested. That seems pretty clear to me. So this is already happening. Almost every terror plot after 9/11 that the FBI wrapped up was manufactured by the FBI, according to terror researcher Trevor Aronson, whose book, The Terror Factory, tells the tale. So whether or not there's a false flag, which everyone who's paying attention is expecting, I think we can be pretty sure the FBI is going to try to manufacture some plots. And the deputy director of ICE, I don't have the Fox News clip in front of me. Katie Halper played it on her show that I was on earlier today, so go back and watch it. The deputy director, or acting director of ICE, he was boasting about arresting 17 Iranian nationals in the U.S. and said, we got a sniper from a hostile country, so we're preventing another 9/11. I mean, they're already just arresting Iranians willy-nilly inside the U.S. So get ready. And no one is going to believe, who's paying attention, if there is some kind of attack, that there wasn't some intrigue behind it. Just because they're overselling it so hard, and we've all lived through the phony war on terror. We know what time it is. I love this headline, by the way. This is another thing I see, like the Trump administration putting out there to claim that there are grave threats to coming from Iran or other elements, Mexican cartels inside the U.S. Tom Homan, the border czar, who's sort of overseeing ICE, and his wife are quote unquote living separately because of death threats. Whenever I have if I have a bad fight with my wife, I'm just gonna blame Ayatollah Khamenei next time.
Yeah, Dan Bongino, the FBI, said a similar thing, that his job in the FBI is basically forcing some him and his wife to be separated or something. So, just always blame a foreign country, even for your own domestic troubles.
Wait, let me see if I can find that. Oh yeah, this is great. Yeah, if I'm ever in the doghouse again, it's because and I'm sleeping on the couch. It's really because the Mexicans. It's because of the illegals. We got to. Once we clear out these Home Depot parking lots, then everything will be harmonious in our
marriage. Everyone's marriage will be harmonious.
It's such a sacrifice for Dan Bongino, though. He's having such a hard time.
I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean, my wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this, and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there. He gets in at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night.
Oh my God!
I'm there at 7:30 in the morning. He uses the gym. I work out in my apartment, but I stare at these four walls all day in D.C. By myself, divorced from my wife. Not divorced, but I mean separated, divorced, and it's hard. I mean, we love each other, and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work.
Yeah, such a poor guy. He basically said he's divorced from his wife. I mean, and this guy, he's such a bully, he played the role of such a thug on his astroturfed corporate radio show. He bullied so many people, and now he wants everyone to feel sorry for him because he has to go work a job.
I'll never forget it. After October 7th, he accused Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian American member of Congress, of trying to incite a religious war inside the U.S. simply because she didn't want her people to be genocided. And Dan Bongino accused her of trying to incite a religious war. So, he seems to take things a little bit too far.
Well, if he's got all that free time on his hands, then why can't he, make all the Trumpers happy by finding the Epstein files? What's up with that?
Or even, speaking selfishly, the Russiagate documents, which have also been forgotten.
I mean, what's he doing there? The only reason Dan Bongino's there was to make Trumpers trust the FBI again after it was turned correctly into their enemy. That's the only and I don't know what he does all day. Send him back to Florida. But yeah, everyone who's paying attention, phony terror plots incoming. They're already taking place. And there's no legitimacy left. There was no legitimacy for this war. No one in the American public, except for boomer Republicans, wanted it. Literally no one. Only 20% of Republicans under 45, according to a CNN poll, supported it. There's no legitimacy for this phony war on terror narrative again. No one's believing in it. We've seen it before. And really, there's no legitimacy in this country anymore, especially for people who are 45 and under. I mean, I'm over 45. And
Me too.
there's a growing number of people, like unprecedented,